All right.
Okay, let's go.
Got
So,
it.
hello. This is Lea Anne Guettler, and today we're going to be talking about her book, Red Darkling. So,
Hello, Leanne.
Hello.
this is Steve, and I'm Ryan, and we're from Your Paper Quest. So, we're all very, very excited to have gotten a chance to include Red Darkling in our stories this time. And we're really looking forward to asking questions and hearing more insight about the story itself.
Great. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. So I guess first and foremost, well done. The story was, at least for me, I can't speak for Steve, but I know he enjoyed it as well. The story was phenomenal. I think there's something about sci-fi that makes it really easy to I guess gatekeep, for lack of a better word, because there's so many bigger ideas within the space, and it's really nice to have a sci-fi book where it felt like doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on in terms of your desire for sci-fi. It felt like it was a story that anyone could enjoy.
Well, thank you. I liked it. Actually, after I wrote the book, my husband says this isn't even really sci-fi, and I said it is sci-fi, and sci-fi is valid. Um, but really, I use sci-fi almost as a setting rather than a genre, I think.
That's a really good way to put it.
Which is, because it's sort of where it is, but the story itself isn't really sci-fi, at least not in the traditional sense, I guess.
So then jumping off of that, what would you say is the genre that takes place in this sci-fi world?
I'm going to quote Steve here and say, Space Florida.
Florida man goes to space.
Florida trucker goes to space.
Yeah, it had more in common with like Ice Road Truckers or something, like an episode of Duck Dynasty or something than most hard sci-fi. I think that was the appeal of it. That's what I really loved about it. So when I was reading it, I made a little list of the things it reminded me of, and I'm sure I ran some of these by you before, Leanne. But I got Firefly, The Fifth Element, Farscape. I don't know if in America you guys have Red Dwarf. That's like a cult classic.
Yeah, Red Dwarf.
You know Red Dwarf, right? That's good. Yeah,
oh my
I got
gosh,
a lot of Red Dwarf from it. That's kind of space truckers as well, a little bit.
Yes.
A lot of those kind of classic sci-fi serials. So, what were your inspirations? What was the DNA that went into Red Darkling?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I grew up watching Red Dwarf, Monty Python. I read a lot of Douglas Adams.
Oh yeah.
I have watched Firefly. I have not watched Farscape, or what was the other one you said?
Oh, The Fifth Element.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that, but I really wanted it to be something funny. I mean, I can't write a straight story to save my life. I just can't. Um, so I wanted it to be funny. So I sort of drew on the sort of Red Dwarf and Hitchhiker's Guide kind of thing, and threw all those elements together and had my own sort of feminist spin on it, I suppose.
Yeah. I think that really came through. It was a really grimy, kind of dirty story, but at the same time, it was all heart. It was really strongly voiced. I think like Red comes through really well in it, despite being an absolute car crash of a person.
Yeah, like Red isn't someone I would necessarily want to be living with as roommates, but definitely someone that I would want to see like 5 times a week as a friend.
So it's funny because
she'd be good at.
What was that?
She would be really good fun at a party.
Oh yeah, she'd bring all the booze. It's funny because the character sort of, looking back on it now, once it's been written, she's sort of everything. She's half what I would want to be like, and half what I'm afraid I really am. So
yes,
the slobby stuff, I'm kind of afraid. I mean, I'm not nearly that bad, of course. I don't throw trash on the floor, for example, but that sort of thing. I'm sort of afraid I'm like that. But on the other hand, I really wish I had her just sort of give no F's about it sort of attitude, and willingness to just do stuff and be who she is and do her own thing. So
that felt like the kind of theme of the whole story to me was, I guess, especially given the ending, which we don't want to spoil too much, but for those who are watching who've read it, obviously the ending is kind of a build up of her deciding who she is, if she's going to be like would you call him the villain, the antagonist, the other character? We know who we're talking about.
Antagonist.
Yeah, the really well dressed guy. If she's going to be like him, worse than him, better than him, whatever. I loved all that. And it's interesting that you talked about how much of you goes into it, because one of my questions was going to be how much of Red is just you and how much of her is other people that you know, or like how did you put her together?
So yeah, so I sort of you mentioned influences earlier. Another one I forgot about until just now is Tank Girl. I love Tank Girl.
Okay.
And so a lot of Red comes from that. And of course spin off on that. But I also I told my friend, I have a good friend from college, her name's Audrey, and she is also a writer, and I've known her forever, and we sort of have these parallel lives things going on where anyway, she's a lot of inspiration for this character too, in not the bad ways, but all in the good ways, the taking charge and just being in control of stuff all the time and wanting to be in control of stuff all the time, but at the same time kind of being a little bit of a hot mess. Sorry, Audrey, but it's true. Anyway, so yeah, that came from. Now, if you want to talk about other characters, Bonk the cat was inspired by my old dog Chewy, who was a Cairn Terrier. So Wizard of Oz dog, but brown. And he was he was a million years old, and he had gone blind and deaf for the most part. And he would navigate like a Roomba. He would walk for a way because he couldn't tell where he was. So he would walk for a ways and bump into something and turn, and then he'd walk a little ways and then bump, turn. So that was sort of where Bonk came from with the glitchiness,
I really like that.
So thanks, Chewy.
Oh, it's telling that you call your terrier Chewy as well.
His name's Chewbacca. His name was Chewbacca.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, that's really cute. I like that. And what about the other characters?
Yeah, like one of my favorite characters throughout the story is Chuck. I
love Chuck.
I don't know what
or Charles.
Yeah, or Charles. It's just the fact that you I love the world building that goes behind it. The idea that you have like this chain, and then you just have the same bartender at all of them. I thought it was brilliant.
Quantum bartender.
I love Chuck so much. He's so much fun to write. I don't know if he really was. I don't know if he was inspired by anything really. Just the fact that I don't know. I don't have any inspiration for him except his name. I mean, his name had to be Chuck. And so that sort of all flowed from there. I love the name Chuck for characters. I don't know why. I've written short stories with Chuck characters. I don't know. It's so evocative of a name for me. It's just a specific kind of guy, and Chuck is that guy.
I feel like
Chuck's the bartender that you find everywhere.
Yeah.
I think
it's the eternal.
I think it's also the fact that he went by Charles at the fancy bar. I just thought that was a little cherry on top of yes, this was all super well done and thought through.
And he was trying really hard to be fancy too. But he was sort of putting on you're not really gonna know me, but I also think it was really funny that Red would know him because she drinks at all the bars in the universe. And so she's the only one who would ever know that he was the
that it's the same one at every bar. The same guy. But it's cool from I guess the surveillance standpoint, where it's oh yeah, I saw him here, just across the galaxy, across different parts. I found that really intriguing as well.
So I was thinking about the structure of Red Darkling, because I know Ryan's went on to read Bonk, and Bonk's more of a straightforward A, B, C kind of plot. Whereas I felt like Red had more in common with a series, like a serial, where it was more like a collection of short stories, and it, all linked together. And I wanted to ask if that was how it started, maybe as a bunch of shorts.
It did start that way. Good catch.
Ah,
Yeah,
Really?
so it started out, the whole idea came to me. I wrote one short story. It was called Code Red, and it was for an anthology of science fiction retellings of fairy tales. So
oh, nice.
I'm like, oh, so I wrote one that was like
Ooh, Little Red
Red
Riding Hood.
Red Riding Hood in space. Her name was
Hey,
originally
that's
Red
cool.
Rider, and of course
Yeah,
Woodman stayed Woodman because, but it was the section
of
with
course. Right.
um Granny,
Yeah.
where Granny is being held hostage.
Right.
That's the Red Riding Hood part. And actually the bad guy in that scenario was, I think his name was Sloan I don't even remember, because his name was Wolf in the book. In the original story,
Yeah.
his name was Wolf. So I think I changed his name because I didn't want to make it too obvious, but I really liked that story, and I thought I really couldn't let the characters wouldn't go away. And so I wrote a couple more stories, and they all kind of, the next one was um about Bonk, her getting Bonk.
Yeah.
And then the next one after that was hmm, oh, the one with the Bega on the ship, where they get
Oh, yeah.
where their ship breaks down and stuff. That was the third one. And then there's another one that's actually told from Woodman's point of view, but that one couldn't work in. That one's kind of hinted at
Mhm.
Yeah.
in the book, sort
Is
of.
that what he's away? He's away doing something, right?
It's when she's trying to find work and she can't find any work for a while, or
Uh-huh.
anyway, all of her stuff gets stolen. Oh, it's right after the witch, where they had all the stuff, and I had to explain away how she got rid of all. Why does she not have all the stuff now? She made this huge score, and now she's broke again. I can't have her being rich. What the heck? So I had
Yeah.
to have. So anyway, that's sort of worked in there. It's in the background. You don't see that action, but so anyway, so then I thought, I really like this. I kind of feel like I should write a bunch. I could make a collection of stories all based on this same character. And he's my husband now, but at the time he was my boyfriend. He says, you could just write a novel. And I said, I could. So then I stitched those together, and I had to have the part at the beginning. Actually, maybe that was a short anyway. But yeah, I did. I stitched a bunch of short stories together for the first third or so. And then from there it picked up. And I'm sure you can tell because, like you said, you can see it's sort of serialized, and then it sort of picks up steam and becomes an actual plot halfway through.
I'm not gonna lie.
I think
I'm dumbfounded. I had no idea.
Really?
I had no clue. I had
cannot believe cannot believe I missed the Little Red Riding Hood.
I'm
blue
like
scarred through
I'm like
Woodman as
sitting
well.
here. I'm sitting here in awe a little bit. Like, well, granted, I did read it a little bit differently because I read Bonk first. I read
You
Bonk
did?
first because I thought that was the first book. That was my mistake. So I read it as essentially a
Oops.
prequel.
Uh-huh.
But I liked I liked reading Red Darkling knowing about the antagonist the whole time. I thought it was this really cool, unique buildup. But yeah, at no point did I think at one point it was a collection of short stories. Maybe that
how
was
interesting.
Red Apocalypse first, but I'm sitting here kind of like processing this at the moment.
The original story is up on Amazon if you wanted to go read it, if you feel like it. Also, there's I have it up separately. It's also in the anthology. If you want to look up the anthology, I think it's still available. Circuits and Slippers.
Circuits and Slippers.
There's a lot of other cool stories in there. That was the first story I ever got published by somebody that was not somebody I knew. So
Yeah.
Cool.
I think I missed the Woodman reference. I thought Woodman was a very obvious reference to his propensity for physical affection. I thought,
no.
it's funny because.
However, that works, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was why he was called Woodman.
No, his ship is still called the Chopper, though. I don't know if you noticed that. His ship is called the Chopper, so that I had to leave in because I thought it was funny.
See, I thought that was like a Harley Davidson kind of thing.
Like ruining everything. Before you know, I'm ruining all your cool ideas. That would have been so much cooler. That's
great though. That's such a nice reference. And as well as that, on the cover, she's got the hood up and everything. That's perfect. I can't believe I missed all of those things. That's brilliant.
Well, it
And then
actually is good. It makes me feel good that I was able to hide that a bit then. I mean, because I really didn't want it to be like, you know, I don't know. I
Little
didn't
Red
want it
Riding
to
Hood in
have all
space.
that fairy tale stuff in there still because it's not what the book was.
Yeah.
I
And
was
then
gonna
I guess them getting stuck on the ship with the person that's going to eat them as well. That's like a big bad wolf kind of thing. Like how big your
That's
teeth
like
are.
and that's okay because I was gonna do more fairy tale.
Yeah.
That was she was the Hansel and Gretel.
Right. Yeah. The witch that wants to put them in the oven and everything. Yeah.
And she
Oh,
had
that's so
all of
cool. Yeah.
the cool stuff. I mean, she had like a cool ship to attract people in and stuff. Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel in space. Yeah, I probably should check out this anthology. That's a really cool idea.
yeah, it's circuits and slippers. Yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
That's
No,
fantastic.
I had no idea.
So,
I had absolutely no idea. And I'm gonna be like, now when I reread it, because I try to reread certain books once every like year or two, because I just once you kind of start forgetting the little pieces, the fine details going back. But going back through it with that knowledge, I know full well. I'm like, okay, what story is this? What story is this? But I think it was
so
done in a very, very like strong way because I had no idea until you just told me. Like, well done.
Cool. It's like Easter eggs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's interesting taking the idea of it as more of a series or a serial, given what I know you've been working on just now, which is was it mix your own Red Darkling jam, the mixtape
Mix
idea,
your
like a
own
choose your own
Darkling
adventure
verse
thing, right?
jam.
That's the one, yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that then, because I'm fascinated by this idea.
So that is, I had this idea of, I was writing book 3 of the whole Darkling thing and doesn't have a title. So, but anyway, I got about 20,000 words in, which is where I get stuck. I get 20,000 words in and I'm like burn out and I put it away for like, I did that with the first one. That was about how much the stories were. And then I had with the second book, Bunkpocalypse, I got about 20,000 words in, and it was just like I froze up for 18 months. I couldn't do anything. So this happened with the third book, and I thought, well, I'm not going to let my momentum go. I'm going to try something else. And so I thought it would be really fun. I was thinking of different fun things you could do. I've done some narrative poems that are riffs on this. I did a Christmas story for Red. I did "Twas the Night Before St. Cripps" as a poem. So I figured I like playing with stuff like that, with like,
Yeah.
mixing things together and smashing them up. So I'm like, choose your own adventure would be really fun. And I was talking to people on Twitter and I sort of I floated it as a joke on Facebook and everybody had so much response. I'm like, well, I guess I have to do this thing. So I worked on that and it was really, really, really fun because I didn't have to have any one big plot line or anything. I could have a bunch of little ones. And I wouldn't have to commit a full novel to any one of the ideas. I could do little ones. And it's a little interesting because it's got, I mean, as a choose your own adventure style, it's you as the main character. So it's written second person present tense, which is really weird when you're not used to doing that.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it's set in the Darkling verse, with all the same kind of, some of the locations. It's in the market on Glore. The big market is where the main action happens. The premise is that you are a little dweeby nerd from some backwater town on Sept Magosi, and you are your first grown-up vacation off-world because you have a job now and you have money and you have vacation time. So you're going to go out, you've got a professionally planned itinerary, and you're dropped in the middle of this huge market, and that's when that's where the choices start, and it was so much fun. But some characters do show up. You see Red sometimes shows up in one of the storylines. Some characters from the second book, Dirk Largo shows up. Blimey Jim is in it. And Chuck, of course. I had to have Chuck because you can't not have Chuck. So Yeah, but
It
that
seems like
project is kind of on hold because I don't really know what there's stuff happening, and I
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen with this story. Something's going to happen with it sometime. I just don't know when or how specifically. So
Well, when it does,
no,
I'm
all
sure
right.
we're all very excited for it. That sounds fantastic.
it was
I
so
was
much
really
fun.
excited. Yeah.
I think
I
that's a
was
genre in general, the kind of create your own adventure, because we've read a few. We've had one, or I think just actually one that's been submitted that we were reading through, and I think it's just so hard to hit the nail on the head with them, like getting characters that you really fall in love with, because like you said, there are a bunch of shorter stories. But since you
Mhm.
already have this background of the Darkling verse and everything that comes around, you already have the context within it. So no, I'm very, very excited to see how that goes.
It was really complicated to write too. I don't ever plot. I'm more, I mean, I have sort of a general outline of where I want the book to go, but I don't usually have like scene by scene like some people do. I had to have a spreadsheet, an outline. I had to have individual files. I still haven't I you can't do page numbers until it's all done because you don't know because you have to mix them up. So I have to put the
of
references in there
course,
just
yeah.
letters for now and individual files and I have to put them all together and then when it's formatted, that's when I can put the page numbers in. I can't, to turn to page whatever.
That's a good
That's
point.
going to be a project. I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, like
Yeah, that sounds like hell. Formatting's hard enough
the,
as it is.
the
Yeah, right?
administrative end of the writing doesn't seem fun. No.
I did have a couple places where I got frustrated with there's another inside Easter egg. If you ever see something in the book in one of my books where the character gets frustrated with something like they're um um all we do is talk all the time or why can't something happen or whatever, that's me talking to myself because I've written myself into no, I'm serious. So like there's a part I hate to talk about the second book because we're not talking about the second book, but there's a part where Red gets really frustrated because all they're doing is talking all the time, and she says, I just want to do something. Can we just do something for once? We quit talking. And that was me talking to myself. We have to get the plot moving. We can't just all sit around in a room talking forever.
Mhm.
So if you ever read
Uh,
that, so that's in the Choose Your Own Adventure, I do have a couple parts like that where I got myself into a corner and I'm like, this is just stupid. What am I supposed to go from here? You know? And so I had I had to throw in some stuff that happens that out of nowhere, but it was okay because I set it up as a gimmick.
Well, I was gonna
I don't
say, like,
know.
at no point did it ever feel like, as someone who's read the second book, at no point did it ever feel like there were moments where they were just there for the sake of taking up space. It felt like even if she was having an argument with herself or something like that, it was still, like you said, prolonging the plot. Like it still served a purpose.
Right.
yes, in
Well, good.
character for Red to do things like that, I guess, isn't it? To just go, oh hell, let's just go and do something stupid. That's very in character for Red. So she's still driving the plot when it's unplanned chaos,
Yeah. She's very
which is
useful that way. It's useful to have a
yeah.
character that just like does stuff because then, you know, you just record it. She's just doing stuff. I don't know.
And then
So talking about the world, the Darkling verse. It's a great choice to set a choose your own adventure in because I feel like you've already got this massively detailed world that's still somehow fluid enough that you could basically tell almost any story in it. Like if you fancy telling like a weird time travel story, you don't have to have the technology there. The technology is not really the world building. The world building to
No.
me felt more like the cultures and the brands and stuff. The brands, especially, I was impressed by. And I think that's one of the things that really fleshes out a realistic world. So how did you come up with all the brands? Are they based on things that you like in real life, or did you have to do any research or anything for them?
So no, I didn't have to. I don't do research. The only thing I researched for the first book was how far away the horizon is if you're so far up in
Oh
the
right, yeah.
air. When she's at the market and she's saying it goes to the horizon, I'm like, well, how far is that? But then it occurred to me, I saw him doing math. I'm researching and doing math. And I thought, this isn't even Earth. It could be anything. Who cares? And so stuff like that is really hard for me because I want to have fun, cool names, but I don't want to sit and interrupt my writing flow to get those cool names in there. So With the first book, I tended to stop, think of a name, and it derailed the whole thing. With the second book, I was a lot better about, first of all, I had a lot of stuff I could already use. And I also had, I would put brackets in red. I'd say name here, or, tree here,
Oh yeah.
soda brand or whatever. And then come back later. And if I was stuck with moving the bulk of the narrative forward, I could go back and fill in some of that stuff. And a lot of times it's just thinking of things that exist and twisting them around. Like Old Wahala beer is like Old Milwaukee, sort of, and it's comparable.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that over there, but it's really comparable. If you think about what Old Wahala would taste like and how it's described, that's Old Milwaukee.
Interesting.
In my head, it was a bit like Steel Reserve, like the kind of like the cheaper kind of choice of who wants quantity over quality.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's
I don't know, so stuff like that. Yeah, and sometimes with names of places, I will character names and place names. I will go on like Google Translate, which is fun, and I'll put in. For example, for book 2, I have a place called Whore's Knuckles, which
Perfect.
Whore's Knuckles.
Hey.
Anyway, I wanted to have like, it's like a touristy kind of place. It's like Gatlinburg or something, where it's all built up and crazy with the commercialism in a really naturally kind of nice place. So I wanted to have like a native indigenous term for it. I couldn't think of it. I'm like, how do I do this? So I put in Whore's Knuckles into Google Translate, translated it to Hindi, and then from Hindi to, I don't know, Swahili, from Swahili to Spanish, from Spanish to Dutch, from Dutch to, Google Translate has dozens of languages. I don't even know what they are. And I think this one turns out to be pretty close to Welsh.
Oh,
so, and then I glitch it. So it's not exactly Welsh, but it's close. So I, put apostrophes in places and break up the words in different places. So anybody from Wales, tell me how I did. But it's actually pretty close to Whore's Knuckles in Welsh. Sam in the second book didn't have a name either for a long time. It was just anonymous. And so I ended up, sticking anonymous into Google Translate and coming up with her full name, and then shortened it to Sam, which was a lot better.
Yeah.
I still can never remember what the full name is.
I got into that once. I remember there was a website where you could type a word or a sentence in and it would translate it to Japanese, then back to English, then to Japanese, then back to English like 20 times. You would get complete gibberish out the other side, but that's a great idea for coming up with things.
Yeah, I really
like I've got random generators that I use for Dungeons and Dragons, which, tabletop RPGs and choose your own adventures have that similar potential for chaos, I think, and it's one of the things I'd really love to see you do. I think your writing probably works quite well for that kind of style as well, kind of like more scene by scene, quite evocative stuff. But I used to go onto this random generator you could set it to give me a name that's like Swahili or something, or give me a name that's like Indonesian or something, or Finnish, all these great different languages, mix it up a little bit, and then you can at least keep it kind of in the same kind of culture at least. So it sounds similar, the similar linguistic rules without having to go full Tolkien and inventing your own language and stuff. That's an excellent way of doing it. I might steal that.
Feel free.
Yeah, it's not like anyone's going to know I've stolen it. No one's going to know where anything's come from. Translated 20 times.
I have a bit of a different question that we've spoken about in the past, but I think people would like to know as well. On the cover, is that David?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so which is it? Are you talking about the nipple, or are you talking about
No,
Bowie?
not the nipple. I was more, is Woodman based off of David Bowie? Because now we have the whole Little Red Riding Hood.
Right. Number one, it's not a nipple, it's a Band-Aid. Number two, both of these issues come from, I love my cover artist so much. Jason Kemp, he's phenomenal. He does a great job. I love it. It fits the thing, it fits the tone, everything. But for the first book, I was not super confident in myself hiring an artist. So I don't know how much pushback I could give and not hurt his feelings and, all of that. And like trying to tell him this is not what I want. So he came up with that. I actually have the book here. So this is a Band-Aid. It's red and green, so you can see how well it's healed. I was a little concerned about this, but I figured, well, it kind of goes with the thing. Everybody mentions that. Everybody mentions that. And Bowie also now, okay, so I said, okay, this is a cool lineup, right? It's got this big guy whose name is Oven Schmitty, we've decided. He's not in the book. He's just a guy. I don't know. Red, obviously, holding her bottle of Feinbach. And then this guy said, is that David Bowie? He says, well, I mean, it sort of fits. And I said, can I even do that? I don't know if I can do that. Can I do that? And he was just insistent. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to argue about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've had people who were like, I kept waiting for David Bowie to show up. And I'm like,
yeah. Well, incidentally, if you run David Bowie's name through a translator 20 times, you'll get the star character of the next book.
No, you'll get Woodman.
Well, because of that, I pictured Woodman like David Bowie in my head. David Bowie in my head. For most of the way through it.
I had the same.
And it kind of fit him, I guess, but he at least spoke like him.
Which was, I mean, I wrote Woodman to be sort of Matthew McConaughey and Chris Pratt sort of smushed together. Okay. I've had people who tell me they have crushes on Woodman, and I'm like, really? I guess so. I guess I kind of have a crush on him too, but it's hard to think of him that way.
Yeah, he's a charismatic space playboy. He's I guess he would fit right into something like Firefly or something like that, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Kind of Wild West type character.
Jane.
Yeah, kind of that's the vibe that I got off of him. He's a merc for hire with loose morals, but he's got a heart of gold, kind of.
Yes, heart of gold. I like the scene in his kitchen where he's cooking for his parents. That was such a cool scene for me because it showed a different side of him. He's not just, I didn't want him to be one-dimensional.
Yeah,
However, for the second book, go ahead.
I was gonna say he seemed to have a very, like, this is his life at home. This is his life with Red. It's kind of like Red brings that out of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that in the second book, I had to write him off screen though because they banter so much together and the whole first book is them bantering together and I had to have her talking to somebody else. So I had to give him an excuse. He's at the beginning and then I write him off screen so that she can talk to somebody else. She has to. She has no choice. She has nobody else to talk to.
I really loved how both of them had, their parents, so Red's gran and stuff at home the whole time. It made it feel less like space vagrants and more like people with really terrible space day jobs.
Truckers.
And then they have to go home for a proper meal and stuff. I think most people reading it can probably relate to, going back home and getting your dinner made for you and stuff.
And your laundry and sleeping in clean
laundry,
sheets.
like clean sheets, clean clothes,
real bed,
clean meal, real bed. I think especially with how Red's been written as kind of this messier person, it's nice to see like come back to Granny's and everything. It's like time has slowed basically. Even though we know that it continues to move on, but it's nice to have that slower pace transition in as well.
So I guess we've only got about 4 minutes left in the meeting. So I wanted to finish off with a question that I've been dying to ask, which is, how much does alcohol involve itself in the creative process when it comes to Red Darkling?
Very little, actually. Not anymore. I used to sometimes when no. Let me put it this way. Sometimes when I would get stuck, I would have a drink or something just to get that stupid internal voice to shut up and make things go. But I think I don't really need that anymore. I think I just I've written enough of it that it's familiar enough that I can just,
honestly,
I've always found,
I think honestly, like what you were saying too about the create your own adventure, I could not imagine mixing alcohol with the organizational structure of that. I imagine like what I'm writing is fantastic, and then it's just so like it makes the organizational process a mess. I can only
Well, and the trick is though, see, when you're writing, when you're drinking, you have to not drink so much. You have to drink just enough so that it can get rid of that
Make
internal
you better.
voice and sort of get inhibitions, but not so much that you're just like don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Is there
I mean,
is there a Red Darkling cocktail or anything that readers can mix while they're it's just straight whiskey?
Good question.
well, pretty much straight whiskey. Although,
PBR.
again, I feel bad because I keep referencing the second book, but in the second book, there's a book called The Fuzzy Fazzer, which is basically fruit juice with a little, like you run booze over the top of it.
Nice.
You know, it's got, but those, so that's something I should be working on. I could have a recipe book. I could have, roast darn a recipe.
Great, yeah.
You know, that sort of thing. Fuzzy Fazzer.
That's a great idea.
Don't give me more ideas. I don't need more ideas.
Well, no.
Put it in the back of the
you get stuck. You have a different thing to procrastinate with.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're coming to, it's the last minute or two. Lea Anne, tell us, where can people find you if they want to read your books? Where's the best way to get in touch with you?
Find me on social media. I have a Linktree. It's Linktree Lea Guettler. Pretty much everything is Lea Guettler. So if you look for me on Twitter is good. I'm on Blue Sky. I know I'm fancy. But that's, I hate to sell there because it's really not the vibe there yet. And Twitter's dying, so I'm looking for something else. I'm on Facebook. You can find my books on Amazon. You can find, I also Prairie Fox Books. I want to give them a shout out. They're an indie bookstore about 20 miles away. They are fantastic and kind of my happy place, and they have my books there, so you can, and they'll ship them. So if you order, I mean, y'all have them already, but in case anybody else is looking, or if you want book 2. Yeah,
and we'll also be sure to put all the links in the comments description. This is my first time using YouTube, so it's all going to be a bit of a learning curve.
Oh, lucky you!
Yeah, we're growing as people. But
so you're gonna have this all down for Thursday.
Oh, easily by Thursday, yeah. So I'll be a whole new person by then. But really, just thank you so much again. The book was wonderful. You're wonderful, and it's been great to actually see the making of instead of as well as the story. So thank
you so much. This was amazing.
Appreciate it.
You guys had great questions.
Hope to speak to you again soon. And it's going to be, we're going to get cut off really quickly here, so
Yep.
Cuts off
Bye.
But
Take care.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.